As the QBs are slated to arrive at camps this week, what is the one thing that you're looking at as you assess the Patriots quarterback options?
Well, Ryan, start with this. It has been a long time in New England when they have had an open quarterback competition in training camp. Probably have to go back to 1993 when Drew Bledsoe was the #1 overall pick and people were asking, will he be ready to go on opening day? So you're going to watch the repetitions. How are they split up between Cam Newton, Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer, and a preview this last week I thought was very symbolic of that. You had Cam Newton out on the West Coast in L.A., throwing to new Patriots receiver Damiere Byrd, among others. And you had Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer here in Massachusetts working with starting center David Andrews and some other pass catchers. Soon they're going to come together on the same field. And how that looks and how those repetitions are split up is going to be compelling to watch.
All right, and what are you hearing from inside the organization about how they view the quarterback situation?
Well, their biggest concern, Ryan, is simply time. I mean, this is going to be a tight window to assess what they have with Cam Newton. And Bill Belichick often says, when you're in the spring, that's when you're teaching the players your system. So when they come to training camp, they can compete for jobs. Well, you didn't have that teaching period with Cam Newton and any of the other players. So now you're coming to training camp and you have to meld that teaching and that competition together. And think about this. You might name Cam Newton your starting quarterback without him even playing in a game for your team. So it's time. That's the biggest concern they have inside the organization.
Imagine that. And Mike, as you were saying that, Damian Woody's nodding his head. I want to bring in Woody and Rob Ninkovich, our former Patriots, to react to that report. Mike, thank you very much, by the way. You were nodding your head. Woody, why?
Well, I think he brings up an interesting point. He talked about preseason games. Think about it. The players don't want preseason games. The owners want to. So here you are with the Patriots. This is your first time having a quarterback competition, like Mike Reese said, since 1993. And you might not even put your starting quarterback on the field until week 1. I mean, think about that. You know, if you're the New England Patriots, that's a dicey proposition to have, that you don't have any. You might not have any preseason games to get a sense of operation, you know, all the things that you've been accustomed to throughout the years until possibly week 1. That's what we could possibly be looking at.
Oh, could you imagine that? Especially after all this time with Tom Brady leading things. So, Rob, what is it like in the locker room with the organization when you got Cam Newton coming in? He's used to being the guy coming into the Patriots locker room. How will he be treated in the quarterback hierarchy?
I mean, he's going to be treated like a guy that has to come in and earn a spot and earn that starting position. Look, I can remember back when I was in situations where I'd come into the linebacker room and the depth chart is up on the chalkboard, and you look and you're like, oh, look, I'm not starting. Great. I'm in number 2 position. So that's kind of a little mental test to see how you respond. And look, there's always situations where the position coach is going to come in and say, look, it's up to you to change your status on where you're at on the depth chart. And sometimes they do that just to see how you react. Sometimes guys, they respond well. Sometimes guys don't. And in my particular situation, you go out there, you go into camp, you see where you're at on the depth chart. You got to go out there and you got to earn it. I would think that Cam is going to come in, possibly not being the starter because he hasn't even been in the building yet. So how can you have him be the starting quarterback? He's got to go out there. He's got to come in just like everybody else and earn a spot on that roster. Just like the 90th guy on the roster is going to have to do, he's going to have to make the team.
Wait, so just so I understand it here, is it kind of like a mind game? Were you in a situation where it's, you know, you're starting, but they're knocking you down to number 2 and C? Let's see how Rob responds to this.
There's always going to be, you know, challenges, mental, you know, physical. Football is mental and physically challenging. When you're going through the process of trying to make a team and you get bumped down to the 2nd or 3rd team, it messes with you. I mean, look, I've seen Pro Bowl players on the Patriots roster come in and have to play in the 3rd and 4th preseason game. And they were Pro Bowlers and other teams. And they come to the Patriots and it doesn't really matter. Look, you got to come here, you got to make the team. And if you're a veteran playing in the 4th game of the preseason, that's kind of the writing on the wall. So you always have to be ready no matter what. You could come in, they could have you running with the 1st team. If you're running with the 3rd team, they want to see how you respond to it. Some guys respond well, others don't.
All right. And you know, the other issue around this is how Cam Newton meshes with the Patriots and especially Bill Belichick. Now, here's something interesting. Cam Newton was asked about it this week on his compatibility. Check this out. I said, hold on. How's me and Bill Belichick going to mesh? Because it's like perception. All right. I get it. It's like I guess Damian Woody, he kind of feels like, why do you think we wouldn't mesh? How do you think they would mesh?
Well, listen, I think that if Cam comes in hungry and humble, I think that'll be a good position for him to be in because Rob knows this. When you're with the Patriots, it doesn't matter if you're the starting quarterback. You know, you could be a star player. Bill doesn't care. He'll undress everybody in front of the whole team. And so if you come in, you know, with this preconceived notion that I'm the guy and all those type of things, guess what? That's going to get shot down. So, you know, I think Cam throughout this whole offseason has been I think it's been challenging for him considering the stature he had in Carolina, but I think the guy's hungry. And as long as he comes in hungry and ready to work, I think good things will happen to him in New England.
And I think you said a very important word there, the word humble. I think there is this impression by some that Cam Newton doesn't have that humility. He says he does. Other people say he does. But it's different when you're coming, Rob Ninkovich, from being the man to having to walk in the locker room and be one of the guys. So how do you think he handles that and handles Bill Belichick and meshing?
Well, I think they'll mesh perfectly fine up until they come up to a hard point in the season. Look, you're going to be excited that you're in a new position, a new place, learning a playbook, have an opportunity to get back at everybody else that passed on you. Bill Belichick is going to mesh with any player that's going to help him win football games. So, look, they're going to mesh perfectly fine right now. Week 10, we'll see if they're 5-5 or if things aren't going the right way. Maybe that's when there's not the right, chemistry between the coach and the quarterback.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.